Hello and welcome to my worst books of 2020. Can I use this? Is this cool now? Let's go with it. This is my top 10 worst books of 2020. I have struggled with this list. There were more candidates for the best of 2020 than the worst, which is a good thing, but still, I did end up trying to rank this list, which is hard. It's really hard to quantify your hatred of something, but I feel like I did a good job. I think this is the right order. I'm not gonna stress over it too much because if I think about it, I'm gonna change it and we don't have time for that. So let's just get started. Starting in the number 10 spot, the 10th worst book that I read in 2020 was The Gracier by Kim Liggett. This was sold to me as The Hunger Games meets Mean Girls, and that just sounds like everything I could ever want. It was not that. Both of those stories are both so fun, and even though one's a little more murdery than the other, they're still so not fun or joyful, but like generally positive things. This is a story about girls who are sent away during their 16th year into the wilderness to fend for themselves and to purge themselves of their magic. It's a lot about feminism and I guess female friendship. I really don't know what this was about because it ended up not being fun. It ended up being the main character is off by her own being sad, and then there's a random love interest for no reason and he doesn't make any sense. This really should be on a most disappointing list, but we don't have one of those. But this was one that I was so excited about, and I had heard a bunch of people hyping it up, and it just didn't end up being for me. Still bitter about it. This is one of the first books that I read in January 2020, and I still think about how angry it made me. Number 9 on this list is a controversial pick and probably the most disappointing one that we have. There's some other disappointments, but this one is. I was so excited for this. I really thought this could be my jam, and that is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Oh boy! What are y'all thinking? Everyone on BookTube loves this book. They talk about it constantly as like one of their all-time favorite romances. Let me tell you, this is not a romance. Potential spoilers for The Hating Game, but I can't talk about it without being angry. This is like you, like capital Y, you, if Beck was super into it the whole time. That's the level of whatever that we're dealing with. That's the level of crazy that we're dealing with the hero in this story. He is manipulative and he gaslights her constantly and he like physically assaults her occasionally. He stops other people from talking to her. I'm sorry if these are spoilers, but like, I don't think these are actually spoilers, but just like, it's insane the amount of crap that this guy does and gets away with because he's, it's fine. It's fine. It is not a good romance. It is not a relationship of equals coming to learn about each other. It's about one creepy dude and this one like so intentionally quirky girl who like grew up on a strawberry farm and she collects Smurfs, and it's just like, you're quirky for the sake of being quirky. It drove me insane. I loved the writing. I thought the dialogue was all really good and really fun, and I really enjoyed Sally Thorne's writing. I just really hated these characters, and I hated them together, and I hated every decision that they made. This was not for me. I have a really long ranty review on Goodreads that I'll put down below because I feel like that summarizes my thoughts better, but it is spoilery. Number 8 on this list is The Wives by Tarryn Fisher. I'm honestly shocked this isn't further up the list because this is a rough one. I own this book. You will see I do not own many books that I read, but this one was pushed really hard. And what does it actually say? Imagine that your husband has 2 other wives. You've never met the other wives. None of you know each other. Yada, yada, yada. But one day while you're doing laundry, you find a scrap of paper. Oh yeah, so she finds out who one of the other wives is. Hannah has no idea who you really are, but then Hannah starts showing up to your coffee dates with telltale bruises and you realize she's being abused by her husband, who is of course also your husband, but you've never known him to be violent. Like, that sounds great. I love the idea of like messy women. This is something I've learned recently is I love bad people in books. I love messy relationships and just like drama, I guess, for lack of a better word. And this seemed like it would be chock full of it, but it ended up being really repetitive. And there's no really good way to talk about this book without talking about the ending, which is, it's shocking for sure, but not in a good way. It's something I feel has to be read to be believed. So if you're in the mood for a good hate read, highly recommend this one. My number 7 most disappointing worst book of 2020 was Axios End by Lindsay Ellis. Lindsay Ellis is a YouTuber who does video essays about history and movies and random internet crap. She's got some really interesting stuff. I'll link her below. But when I found out she was writing sci-fi, of course, I love sci-fi. I would love to read what she has to offer, and it didn't work for me. I think this was the perfect example of telling and not showing. This was just like 350 pages of exposition. It was just characters who exist only to explain alien civilizations to each other. I just didn't care. There was so much political setup for like how this alien race works, and I just could not care. I feel like these characters weren't people, they were just exposition devices, and it wasn't fun to read. Especially the first third or so is really rough to get through. Like, it feels like a totally different book, and the main character Cora is the worst, and I hate her. I know that this book does have some really high ratings and some people who really love it. Those people just aren't me. Number 5 is a book that I have already talked about quite a bit, and that is Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I am starting to realize that I think I own more physical books of books that I hated than of books that I loved, which is sad because this one is gorgeous. I love this cover so much, and it's one of my most hated books this year. This is a story completely devoid of plot. That's not fair. Yes, it is. It's such a nothing story. Like it's so slow, and it like kind of builds to something, but then it doesn't. Like, you think you're getting somewhere and then you're nowhere. I feel like they should have leaned more into the supernatural element of it if they were gonna go that way, but it ended up being so incredibly boring. None of the characters are likable in this. It's like reading through a fever dream and nothing makes sense, but I think it's supposed to be that way. This is another one that like a lot of people love and a lot of people hate. So it has its niche audience. It's just definitely not for me. And it's only 300 pages, and it was a struggle for me to get through. Like, if I hadn't paid, what, $36 for this book, I would have DNF'd it. At this point, I have realized I actually have 11 books on this list and not 10, so all of my counts are off. So we're gonna just keep going. You get a bonus one in there. I'm sorry, Gracier, you shouldn't have been on here, but you still sucked. So I'm fixing all the numbers now, and so my number 6 worst book of 2020 was Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. I watched the beloved classic She's the Man with Amanda Bynes and baby Channing Tatum, and I loved it, just like everyone does. It's really good. Like, even now rewatching it, it's actually really good. And so I figured, I know it's based on Twelfth Night. I read books. I'll just read Twelfth Night. And I even found like a BBC production of it. And you know the BBC does everything right, so like, let's just go with it. I hated it so much. It's not good. It's so boring. There's no romance in it. Like, the leads interact for 2 seconds at the end, and I don't think they even like get consent that they're gonna get married. Most of the plot is dedicated to like all of the side characters bullying this other side character, and it's so annoying. I feel like I read this in high school. We definitely read some Shakespeare in high school, and I don't think I hated it this much. It felt like such a nothing story, and I just wanted She's the Man. So just watch She's the Man. If we've learned anything, just watch the movies. Who needs books? Just watch movies. My 5th, can't get this wrong now, my 5th most hated book of 2020 was Fahrenheit 451 by Bradbury. I have a ranty Goodreads review of this one as well, so you can just like look through my Goodreads and find it. You'll be fine. My biggest takeaway from it was it felt like it was written by a boomer who was mad that he couldn't say the N-word. And that's not a ringing endorsement. Like, it felt like it was trying to be progressive sometimes, and then it would just totally devolve into like, well, I can say whatever I want for my speech. It was so disconnected. This book sort of cemented the idea that like we've all been talking about, like why read classics by old white men, but this one was like an old white man. It felt like it was screaming into my ear the whole time, and I just couldn't. It was not a good time. I feel like I've blocked most of this, but I was very angry at the time. This is also one where I watched the adaptation after. I watched the Michael B. Jordan, is it an HBO special? They were both bad for different reasons. I think the movie did fix some stuff, like they got rid of the main character's wife because she was super annoying. But again, like, that's just the way old white dudes write women. So like, maybe she could have been a good character with someone else. It just like, I understand its classic appeal, but it's time for some new classics. Number 4 on this list was my attempt to go outside of my comfort zone with Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This is a poetry collection, and it's bad. I heard someone describe it as Instagram poetry, and that's exactly what it feels like. Like, I have to read you some of these so that you like really understand what I'm getting at. Again, my Goodreads review of this is top tier. I'm very good at Goodreads sometimes, if I do say so myself. All right, I've got some good examples. I am a museum full of art, but you had your eyes shut. How can I write if he took my hands with him? Poetry. Fall in love with, fall in love with your solitude. Poetry. Yeah, this just really didn't work for me. I am way too cynical for stuff like this. I get it for other people. If you like this book, that's great for you. She sold like 1 million copies. So happy for her, but like, wow, is this not my thing? Even a little bit. It is at this moment that I have realized that I can't count, and it was actually 10 the whole time. Great. So going with that, number 2 on this list is The God Game by Tobey. Wow, this is a bad book. I can't believe I own so many bad books. This is, what is this? How do I explain this? You don't play the game plays you. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know about this book? They call themselves the Vindicators, targeted by bullies and pressured by parents. These geeks and gamers rule the computer lab at Turner High School. Okay, so maybe I'm an idiot and this is actually, maybe this is all my fault and I should have seen the warning signs on this, because that does not sound like something I want to read. And that is what it is. It's about a group of high school nerds getting revenge, kind of, but also there might be demons. This book is very confusing, and it's so long. It's so long. It's like 450 pages, and it's so YA, but like trying to be edgy, it's really rough. And like, the dude who wrote it is a 5th generation Texan who went to Harvard and Yale. Like, this is so, wow, I'm mean. I'm really sorry, Tobey, but like, look at this guy. Does this guy not look like he thinks he's the savior of literature? Like, he's like, wow, I have this really important book and everyone needs to read it. And it's just so boring. And it's so confusing and like, no, just no. Just no. This is another one where I just love the cover, so I can't get rid of it. But wow, bad book. No recommend. And number 1, the granddaddy of them all. Of all the bad things, this sure was the baddest. And that is Pride and Prejudice and Mistletoe by Melissa de la Cruz. This is a Pride and Prejudice Christmas retelling. Why did I think I would like that? I think, here's the thing, I don't think I thought I would like it. I think it was just at the library and I had nothing I was reading at the time, so I just grabbed it. And it's also very short. And I thought maybe I could be a Christmas person. I don't know. I'm not. Of all of the books on this list, I think all of the other ones have their audience. Like there's someone who this book is gonna be for them and they're gonna get what it's about and have a great time. Great. So happy for you. This one reads like a first draft. It reads like something that was never edited. Like it was written down once and then no one looked at it again. There are things like the guy starts off, I think it's as a carpenter, and then at the end he's a chef. Those are not the same. The whole book is like that, where scenes will just end and then we'll be somewhere else and there'll be a character that we've never heard of before who just like shows up. I feel really bad because like there could be something. I mean, it's Pride and Prejudice. It's a tried and true formula. People love Pride and Prejudice. It's popular for a reason, but like you have to look it over in the end. I don't know what happened here. If Melissa, you're going through a rough time, it's okay. You have some other very successful books, so good on you, but like, wow. Chef and Carpenter. Great. Thus concludes 2020 and all of the bad books that I read. There were 10 of them and not 11 and not 9 because I am a smart lady and I know there were 10. Who knows how I'm gonna edit this to make that all seem logical. It won't. There's no way that I'm going to seem logical because I am so filled with hatred for these 10 books. But anyway, that's it for me. I will be following this up with my 10 best reads of 2020. I will double, triple check that there are actually 10 on that list, and I will see you later. Bye.